could have danced all night. Noodle, 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 noodle all day long. Hey folks, how you doing? Nick Jennison, it's the Monday Guitar Show. Welcome on board. It's good to have you. We're doing the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out and chat about the guitar. And today we are embarking on a new month of, I guess, a new subject, but this is kind of leading us in a direction, which all will become clear as we go further with this stuff. Today is the first stream on a new topic, and we are discussing what goes on when you change strings. Now, what I don't mean by this, I should point this out, what I don't mean by this is what happens when you replace your guitar strings. What I mean, rather, is what happens when you traverse from one string to another, from the A string to the D string to the G string, B string. And the myriad of strategies we can use to accomplish this seemingly simple task, but actually deceptively mechanically complex task. We'll be talking a lot about picking today, but we're also going to discuss some left-hand stuff and also some timing implications too. So very quickly, before we go any further, I want to remind you that today's stream is brought to you as ever by our friends at Lick Library. Lick Library. Which one is it? This one. Let's do this one because it's in colour. licklibrary.com, where you can go and get an absolute wealth of guitar lessons, including, but not limited to, a new course from yours truly called All About Arpeggios. Now, long-time viewers will remember that we used to have ourselves a little platform that was associated with these streams, and this is one of the courses that are shot for said platform. It's an old GI Plus course, and since the merger of the two, which seems like ages ago now, the merger of GI Plus into Lick Library, this course has just been waiting for a time in the release schedule to kind of make itself known. And man, I love this course, right? I'm really, really proud of this one. There is a couple of other really great ones that are coming your way too. I did promise we'd get them eventually, and here they are. So this one in particular essentially guides you all the way through constructing and using arpeggios. Now, when we say arpeggios, guitar players often conflate the word arpeggio with sweep picking. It's not necessarily sweep picking. It's basically just any kind of arpeggio playing, whether that be melodic phrasing type ideas or super fast kookin' John Norum licks or kind of anything in between. So yeah, go get that. It's a lot of fun. Of course, we are also present on the Guitar Interactive YouTube channel, where you can go and find all of the latest in gear, news, reviews, interviews, new issue coming very, very soon. It is hot, hot, hot on the release schedule, let me tell you. So we'll say some hellos and then we'll get stuck into the meat of the stream. We're going to start with Zach Lee saying StreamYard. StreamYard, indeed, that is the software that we use to bring these streams to you guys. Marcin says, hello guys, time to play my Ibanez, as Nick is holding one in the thumbnail. Now, I do like that guitar. That's one of Kim's guitars. That is his Ibanez Pia Onyx, which is, man, that's a beautiful instrument, right? We were lucky enough, myself and Guitar Interactive editor Jonathan Graham were lucky enough to be present for the launch of that guitar back at NAMM in, I think, 2020 or 2021. I can't remember which one it was, but it was something special, right? Really great. And the gig that followed, unbelievable. We saw the Polyphia guys open for Steve Vai, and then Vai gets everyone up to jam. It was really something, man. Like, and just like revelation about how really, really great these old masters are. Anyway, who else do we have? Marcin also says, I took a few days off from playing. Now I feel refreshed and eager to learn new stuff again. I'm pleased to hear that, man. I've had a similar thing with training recently where I was kind of burning myself out on the old powerlifting thing. And, you know, peaked, tapered, did all the usual stuff, tested my strength. It was fine, but now that I've had a bit of time off, I'm so eager to get back at it. It's great fun. And for the guitar, it can be exactly the same. PJ is here. Mark Crandall's joining us for the first time in a while. Mark, it's great to have you back. He's asking about the arpeggio course. Go check it out, guys. If you're a Lick Live member, you get it included as part of your membership. Larry Warren's here. Sacred Godslayer's here. Kate Strange is in the house. Response Audio is here. Helmet Strap is tuning in, hoping to start putting his pick everything in order? Well, we shall try our best for you, my man. Who else do we have? Kim is in the house. Kim, I missed a call from Kim earlier on. Kim, we'll get you, I promise. We're playing phone tennis, Kim and I. He's been off doing lovely sunshine things, and I have not. But, you know, it's fine. We'll get a chance to catch up soon, I'm sure. Crank Tom is in the house. Crank Tom is great to see you. Franz is here. Steve Luth is in the house. Oz Lopez is asking about the audio. Let me know. Let me know if the audio is okay. It's a one-man show here. I'm doing everything myself, so let me know if it's working. If it is, fantastic. Fog Hornish is in the house. He's been listening but practicing chords for Owner of a Lonely Heart. That's a fantastic song. Really, really great. Meant to learn by tomorrow night. Well, best of luck with that, man. It's not the easiest song in the world, but it's very rewarding, and that solo is a lot of fun. Let me know how you're going to tackle that solo as well, because there's that weird fourths harmony thing. Are you going to play it? Are you going to use a harmonizer? Let me know. Catmandu 1962 is here. Bernard Newton's here. Fog Hornish with a bit of love for the PRS. Big fan of this guitar, right? I picked it up just out of, because it was the nearest one to me, and I thought, yeah, I'm playing this one. Every time I play this guitar, same deal. I'm like, I'm just going to play this one. This was the first PRS I ever got as well. And it's very close to my heart. Love it to death. Dylan Jessup's here. Mal Riley's here. Trolls John, whose name I keep butchering, is here. Citizen is here. Jada Bart is in the house. Raphael is here. Johnny Nine Fingers is tuning on. That Swede guitar dude is tuning in. Joey Dunno, Franz, and Crank Tom saying the audio is good. Pleased to hear that. Okay, so let's get into the changing strings game. And by this, I want to remind you, we're not talking about replacing your strings. We're talking about transitioning from one string to another, crossing strings on the guitar. Now, let's talk about why this is challenging. And we're going to begin with a little bit of an exercise. So for you guys who have your guitars handy, if you don't, grab your guitars, because playing along is fun. I do enjoy this sound. I'm going to switch across to this noise. This is my Victory Super Sheriff. On my little bank of Marshall sounds. I think it's a really great tone. I'm a big fan of that. Sort of like that kind of classic, not quite JTM-ish, but you get the gist of it, right? Anyway, listen, let's talk about the subject at hand. So, crossing strings. Here is a challenge for us, right? Crossing strings, if we play on our G string, and we'll pick a note. The note in question, we'll do the 5th fret. We'll do C. If we play on this, we can play using down and up strokes. We can play down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And we're free to move our pick in as straight of a line as our hand can do it. There's so many ways we can accomplish this. We can play using our elbow. We can play using our fingers. Never been able to get the work myself. We can play using a movement of the wrist, or even a rotational movement of the forearm, or some combination, some compound movement of those. Now, the body doesn't move in straight lines. The body moves in arcs, because we are normally moving things around a joint. So we tend to move in circular motions. I'll go back to this camera and show you. If I try to move my pick in a straight line, I have to do some quite complicated movements. Look at my shoulder moving and my elbow moving to accomplish this. And I'm trying just to trace the line of the pickup ring here. Quite a complicated thing. With a single joint movement, we tend to move in arcing patterns as humans, which is why we normally have opposing joints that enable us to do things like this, where we move our hand backwards and forwards in a line. The net result is the pick is moving in a line. However, these arcs, if we zoom out in the same way that we can't see the curvature of the Earth with the naked eye, but the Earth is curved, the same deal that goes with our arc, right? If we zoom in far enough, we can see the arc of the pick, but it feels and looks and is, to all intents and purposes, a straight line. Let's go back to this one. Apologies to any flat earthers in the comments. Maybe not. I retract. Anyway, so whatever, you can believe whatever you like. That's fine. We're very welcoming here. So we can play in a straight line on this string, and we can actually play with a good amount of speed. But when it comes to getting from one string to another, this is where things become troublesome. So if I take my pick and I try and move my pick to the D string, what I can do is this. I can play down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And let's say, for example, I now want to play another down on my D string. Well, now my straight line is not going to work. Oh dear, because I'm stuck on this side of the string when I want to be on this side of the string. And how do I get from one side to the other? Well, I have to do this. Or do I? We'll get to that, right? We'll answer that question as we go. By the way, in case you're wondering, this was all inspired by a conversation in last week's comments. So this is how much we value your comments, by the way, guys, and your discussions. This whole stream has at least partly been inspired by a little comment thread that we had. So anyway, we're doing this to get to our D string. Let's say, for example, we're going to play the 7th fret on the D string for our A note. We have to do some kind of looping movement to get there. And this is not only mechanically inefficient, it's also a little bit risky in terms of accuracy. We don't want this. Let's try playing that at speed, right? We're going to throw some drums on and we're going to see how accurately we can accomplish this little task with this loosey-goosey thing. Now, you guys who are good at this, you will have developed a bit of an instinct on this. Rose is absolutely cooking away our drummer for the day. We're going to play 16th notes. We'll play 8 notes on this C and then 1 note on this A. We'll go. And I want to know from you, is this okay or is this difficult? Now, at this kind of pace, we can employ all sorts of strategies to make this work. But as we start to speed up, that was 90 BPM, let's get up to 110. We have to start changing things. Let's get up to 130. Let's see where that takes us. And I'll tell you why we have to start changing things in a second. We'll go. Ooh. That's becoming difficult. Now let's turn this up to 155. Big jump, but we'll get there. And this is kind of one of those tempos where things start to really manifest if they're difficult or if they're hard or if they're dialed in. Starting to get a bit challenging. What gives? Well, here's the thing, right? These looping motions that we're talking about here, there's something that we can get away with at slower tempi, but as things start to get faster, the body wants to move in an efficient way. And it wants to move in these relatively straight lines because these are repeating patterns, but they're also repeating patterns that use alternating sets of musculature. We're talking about alternate picking here, by the way. Bernard Newton's in with an upstroke. He's talking about perhaps an economy approach. We're going to get to that as a viable strategy that you can use to overcome some of these difficulties. But what the body wants to do is it wants to use at this speed, when we start playing really fast, an alternating set of muscles to accomplish this task and this task. The downstroke task and the upstroke task. I'm going to show you this. This is all taken from Troy Grady's work, by the way, in case anybody's wondering, this next example, right? Just giving credit where it is most certainly due. We're going to go to these cameras, actually. That's probably better. So if you watch my hand very quickly, if I do, how best to do this? I guess best to do it with this hand. If I do this, if I'm looping with this little looping movement, every time I play a downstroke or an upstroke, while the pick is alternating, the movement of my hand is not alternating. I'm having to do this every time I play a pick stroke. Now what this means is I'm limited now by how many times, how quickly I can perform this wrist extension movement, this blop, 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 blop kind of movement. The body doesn't want this. What it wants is it wants to use some muscles to do this, and then alternating muscles to do this. Which is why we like these straight line picking movements. These kind of... Nobody at speed plays with this kind of looping pick path. It is not possible. C'est non possible. Because this little flexion of the wrist, having to do that every time we pick, we're essentially having to do twice as much work as we'd have to do otherwise. We'll put this to the test, by the way. Pay close attention to your own pick and hand. And we're going to start with a slow pace, and we're going to tremolo pick on this C note. Let's start by doing this little looping pick path, where we do this lift every time we pick. Not terribly efficient. Let's speed it up. Already it's coming apart. Already it's coming apart. Speed, straight lines. Now this presents us with a conundrum, because if we're moving in straight lines to generate speed, but straight lines prevent us from crossing from one string to another because the string is in the way, what gives? What do we do? Well, this is where our dear friend Troy comes to our rescue. Troy Grady being the leading and, to my mind, only researcher on this topic. He was coined a whole mechanical language to describe what's going on here, and I'm going to paraphrase a lot of his work. And with his permission, by the way, I've asked Troy about this many times, and he's like, yep, spread the word, man. So what we do instead is we take our pick path, we keep it straight, but we take this straight line and we put the straight line on an angle. It is literally as simple as that. Watch this. So what I want you to do is I want you to take this same idea of playing down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, where we get to our A string. We'll play like this, but I want you to lean your pick very slightly over this way. So instead of playing with this picking angle, we're going to play with this picking angle, or some derivation of that. Now what this gives you the ability to do is, after that upstroke, notice my pick, even though it's travelling in a straight line, my pick is now up here. It's way up in the air, clear of the strings, and it means I can easily bring it down onto my A note with absolute impunity. Watch this, right? Just the easiest thing in the world. If I go, oops. Now this is something that we would call an upstroke escape picking style, or picking strategy is a term that I use to describe this. It's a strategy. Now this is one of many ways to accomplish the task that we're looking for, which is crossing strings with ease. Now there's a mirror of this as well, which we might call a downstroke escape strategy, and we'll get to that. Now, the language we use for this is escape, and this is a refinement of the original terms that we used to describe this, which was pick slanting. Now, folks would use the term downward pick slanting, upward pick slanting. It gets a little confusing, so the more refined, more up-to-date language that we use is escape, and we use the idea of a downstroke escape and an upstroke escape picking style. That style we've just been playing was an upstroke escape style, because the upstrokes pull away from the strings. I think I said downstroke escape by mistake. It is an upstroke escape style. So we escape with our upstrokes. We do this not by doing this twisty turny movement, but just by angling the pick so its path is still straight, and then allowing us to change strings after upstrokes. Easiest thing in the world. We can also do this with the opposite, which we would call a downstroke escape strategy. Now the downstroke escape strategy is where we angle our pick's path in the opposite direction. It's still straight, but notice now the pick moves away from the guitar's body on downstrokes. Now this would not work for our strategy that we just played, because I'll play down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Oh look, I'm stuck. Down. But I could play this. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Now what's going on here is I'm adjusting the angle of the pick's path to essentially match the line that I'm playing. And the more you do this, the more often you practice this stuff, the more it becomes basically instinct. And we start doing things where if we have a particular line that always escapes on upstrokes, we just naturally fall into this pattern. If we have a line that escapes primarily on downstrokes, like the intense rock line that we played last week, the Paul Gilbert intense rock line, that is a downstroke escape line. We just lean into this position, and I'm going to show you how to find these positions in a second, but this is the core premise of what's going on here. The opposite being true. And on we go. I'm doing a bit of that over-muting thing that I want to do. But you guys can see the difference going on there. Now, let's talk about how to find this, because there's quite an easy way to discover how much of this to do, and how, like, as in how far to angle your plectrum, and also there are some easy little tricks we can use to make sure that we are getting the result that we want and we're finding that amount of lean. So let's start with the way of determining how much we should do. For this, we're going to do some sweep picking. Now, sweep picking is another way of transitioning strings, and quite a good one. You know, a very efficient way to get from one string to another. If we play like this, where we take one stroke, one stroke that moves across all of our strings, we could call that sweep picking. Let's go back to the clean tone. Our friend Joey Dunno with some kind words for the tone. Thank you very much, man. That is Victory Super Jack. Through my new favorite impulse response, which is a Celestial Blackback from 1970 something. Man, great sound of speaker. Now, the way we execute sweep picking is very similar to the way we execute escape picking. We just don't do the escape. So if we want to find the posture that we might use to play an upstroke escape picking line, what we can do is we can play a sweep that moves down like this, vertically down, upwards in pitch. What this will put our hand in the position of, it'll put our hand into this kind of forward lean, because we don't sweep straight like this. We lean slightly forward, or lean slightly back, and we drag the pick rather than pushing the pick. Nobody kind of does this, I hope, when they sweep. So we do this. Now this kind of lean here, the sweep in a downward motion, I'm playing an A arpeggio there, by the way. All About Arpeggios is also available, but any arpeggio will do, or even just the muted strings if you like. This will give you, in most cases, near enough the perfect amount of forward pick lean to play using an upstroke escape strategy, because we lean to create the least amount of resistance in the pick, but we don't lean so much that the pick digs into the strings and creates a clunky tone and a clunky feel. So this slightly forward lean we get from a sweep is perfect for this upstroke escape strategy. And the same is true for a descending sweep. If we have this slightly upwards lean, this will put our pick into basically the perfect angle for a downstroke escape. It is literally that simple. The sweep will just guide you to that perfect angle. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is this. Can I get that on camera? This part of my arm as I do this, right? Watch what happens as we move from this sweep to this sweep, Right, this is something I've talked about a lot on stream, but we'll reiterate this today. Notice that the position of my forearm changes to accommodate the pick lean. Now this is where we find our cues for locating whether we're doing a downstroke escape or whether we're doing an upstroke escape. And here is the cue. You have two bones in your forearm, right? You have a radius, which is your thumb side bone. You have an ulnar, which is your pinky side bone. If you're lame like me, you can remember the radius is on the thumb side because it's like, imagine like a 1950s surfer saying something is rad and putting his thumb up. Right, or her thumb up, whatever. And that is the side that the radius is on. It actually doesn't really matter. We can think about them as thumb side bone, pardon me, or pinky side bone. Now here is the trick. The stroke that escapes, whichever bone that is, if the upstroke escapes, then the thumb side bone, which is in the direction of the escaped stroke, so this bone, as we perform this escaped stroke, that bone leans away from the guitar's body. It is literally as simple as that. Watch this on these two cameras, right? So if I want my upstrokes to escape, I take this bone, the thumb side bone, and I lean it slightly away from the guitar's body. And my upstrokes escape. If I want my downstrokes to escape, I take the pinky side bone, this bone here, which is my ulnar, take that and lean that away from the guitar's body. Whatever stroke you want to escape, you lean that bone away from the body, and it becomes almost like leaning into corners on a motorcycle, right? You lean into this corner to pull away on this stroke, you lean into this corner to pull away on this stroke. But there's another trick that we can use that is derived from our sweeping. So our sweeping has told us what the perfect amount of angle is, and also gives us this sense of which bone is leaning on which side of the guitar's body. But in addition to this, we also have something that we can pick up from our sweeping, which is the use of rest strokes. Now, what is a rest stroke? Well, a rest stroke is a technique from classical guitar. And essentially what it is, you might think about it also as a technique that's commonly used in bass. So if you imagine you playing a bass, I have my basses up here, I'm not going to grab them because it will cause catastrophe, I'm sure. I'm sure it won't be too bad, but I guarantee, right, if I go and grab one of these now, it'll just destroy the whole studio, the whole thing will fall apart. I'm sure it won't. They're not decorative. I do play the bass occasionally. Not as well as the guitar, but I do play occasionally. Now, a rest stroke on bass or on classical guitar manifests itself somewhat like this. If I play my D string rather, and I'll play say a 5th fret note, it's quite common for me to then rest my finger on the next string. So I play my D string, and then the finger rests on the A string. Rest strokes. This is also true with classical guitar. We have two types of stroke we can play. We have the free stroke, which doesn't rest, and the rest stroke, which has a lot of authority to it. Free strokes, kind of fast. I don't play classical guitar. I'm not the guy to ask about this, but I've read about the difference between the two. Look, no nails, right? Cut them off the other day because they were driving me nuts. But even still, the rest stroke is something that we can apply with our picking and with our string escapes, because if we employ a rest stroke, let's say, for example, I play my A string, I play the 5th fret, and I allow the plectrum to rest on the D string, this automatically means that this pick is now in between the A string and D string. It is in the plane of the strings, which means if I reverse that motion, it will escape. So I can use a rest stroke onto the next available string for my non-escaped stroke to find the amount of escape that I need for any given line. So if I'm playing an Eric Johnson line, let's say we're not doing Eric, let's do maybe Zach for argument's sake. Need a bit of gain so I can dig into this because it's going to sound clunky if I don't. Maybe not sound clunky. Maybe it'll sound quite good. And I'm playing those lines. I'm actually deliberately resting my pick on the next string on the non-escaped strokes. So we get this. And not only does that give me this perfectly accurate like gauge for how far I'm picking on a given string, it also lines my escape stroke up. So I'm resting on the stroke, resting on the unescaped stroke, and then reversing that motion bop, 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 to escape the string. And the same is true with the opposite. If we're playing a downstroke escape, let's take this Paul Gilbert lick again. There, if I play it slowly, when I'm hitting my upstrokes, my upstrokes there are actually resting on the G string. I'm playing the B string, and I'm literally resting my pick against, the pick is touching the G string as I'm playing. You don't hear it because this note is quite loud. But that gives me this sense of certainty about how far the pick is going, the angle of the pick's travel, because as soon as I feel that rest, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, right, we've touched the right string, it's moving in the right direction, all is well. So whatever the non-escaped stroke is, we can use a rest stroke. How far do we rest? Well, we gauge that, surprise, surprise, with our sweep, because the sweep picking provides us with a guide for how far we should push the pick down when we rest. Because if we rest too deep on the string, the sweep will become clunky. By the way, sweep picking is just a series of rest strokes. We play and rest, we play through 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 and rest. So the sweep will not only tell us what our picking angle should be, and what our bone orientation should be, but it's also going to tell us how much of the pick needs to rest on the next string to carry off this rest stroke idea. Now thus far we've only played ideas, or rather I've only played ideas that use just a single escape angle. Either we're doing entirely upstroke escape, or entirely downstroke escape. But of course, we know that the guitar is not like that. There are times we want to play both. We can switch. We can switch mid-line. I could play something like this. Where there's an arbitrary number of notes on a given string. And even playing 3-note string scales requires me to switch my escape orientation. But it's something that just becomes natural. Over time it becomes natural, and it becomes very, very easy to execute the more time you've spent doing this. Now, of course, this only refers to using alternate picking in its entirety. But this is the part of string switching that is difficult, and this is the bit that trips people. Now, if you want more information on this, I have a whole course that is available called Picking Strategies. It's available on Lick Library. Lick Library members, you get it included in your membership. And it's also one that pairs really well with last month's sponsored course, which is Sam Bell's Picking Workout. But there are other things we can do to navigate this string crossing dilemma, because for some folks that just doesn't feel right? Maybe one of these orientations feels great, maybe the other one feels terrible, or whatever, or just switching between them feels cumbersome. It's fine to like lock into one and stay there for a lick, but rapid switching, that doesn't feel great, right? Or maybe we want to play one note on a string and we have to switch for everything. Well, we're going to get to that in a future stream, but one of the other strategies we can use is of course to take the rest stroke that we're playing, the rested stroke that's resting on the string, and just turn it into a sweep. So for example, if I wanted to play this, if I wanted to play, let's say 3 notes, and then 3 notes, and then 3 notes, and then 3 notes, and then 3 notes, I could play down, down with a downstroke escape, up, down, up with a downstroke escape, and the right scale would help. Downstroke escape, upstroke escape, downstroke, upstroke, so on and so forth. Definitely not my preferred way to play this kind of line, because I find that bouncing around a little bit cumbersome. What we can do is we can play down, up, down, up, down. So that puts in a downstroke escape, down, up, down, and would you look at that, I'm resting on my G string. Oh no, I've just played an upstroke, I'm now resting on my G string. I have to hit the G string with a downstroke. Right, 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 do we? Nope. Bernard Newton with the answer. We can play with an upstroke. We can play this. Down, up, down, up, down, up. I'm already resting on this string. I can sweep through. Up, down, up. Up, down, up. Up, down, up. Up, down, up. And on we go. Friends, this is what we call economy picking, right? Or gambale sweep picking, some people or one person in particular has referred to it as. Same works in this direction. If I play down, up, down, I'm resting on this A string. Now what I should have done there is changed my escape angle. But if I play this, down, up, down, and I want to play to my next string, I'm resting on the A string is next, I can just sweep through. And wouldn't you know it, we have economy picking. Now, economy picking is not just playing these specific sets of lines. It's just a strategy of, if I find myself resting on a string, I can push through. Now, the economy picking thing follows the same rules of pick angle as the sweeping does, because we do it in sweeping to make the transition from one string to another feel easier. With economy picking, it's the same deal, but what it basically means is if we can't escape, we will. But if we can't escape, we'll sweep. And this is exemplified by Eric Johnson's pentatonic playing, where we get escape, escape, and now we're stuck. This is classic fives lick. So what does he do when he's stuck? He's resting on the B string anyway. Sweep, escape, escape, sweep. Does that make sense? Hopefully this is clicking for some of you guys. Now, long-term viewers, we'll have talked about this quite a lot because this is something that does bear drawing more attention to. But to summarize this a little bit further, here's how it works. In order to pick efficiently, we have to pick in straight lines. In order to cross strings, those straight lines have to escape on a particular stroke. They can't escape on both strokes because that's not a straight line. We've established why picking in straight lines is a good idea, so we have to escape on a stroke. Whatever stroke that is, we have to escape on a particular stroke. We use the bones in our forearm to feel which stroke is going to escape. If the thumb side bone is pointing away from the guitar's body, the upstroke will escape. If the pinky side bone is pointing away from the guitar's body, the downstroke will escape. We use sweep picking to feel how far we should lean in any given moment, and we also use rest strokes to establish that in the moment. We rest on the next adjacent string. Hopefully that makes sense. That, friends, is string crossing in a nutshell with the right hand. But we haven't talked about the left hand yet, and we're going to talk about that now because I said we were going to. So the left hand is another interesting beast with this, right? Now the left hand we can think about in a few different ways. We can think about it in the sense of lining our playing up to maximize the ease of the right hand. So this would look something like changing our fingering or picking lines, choosing lines rather, selecting lines that follow picking paths that we like and that feel good. And I am here to tell you right away that is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's not a damn thing wrong with that. And it's something that everyone does. Even people who say they don't, everyone does. Everyone does this. They just don't know that they do it a lot of the time. right? Because it just feels good. Oh, well, that feels good. I'm just playing that. I'm playing that because I chose to play it. There's a bigger argument here. The bigger argument might be free will. Like, what led you to choose to play this? You know, what confluence of circumstances led for you, dear viewer, I was going to say reader, dear viewer, to select this particular line? Probably because it feels good and you can play it. And you're probably not going to play things that you can't play because you can't play them. Because if you couldn't play them, how are you going to play them? You get the gist, right? Anyway, so another way we can frame the left hand, however, is we can talk about the left hand's capacity to change strings. And this is where things get a little bit challenging, because our left hand wants to change strings at particular times, let's say. And we're going to challenge our ability to do that now. This is something that we've referred to before as time feel. And this is a Tom Quayle term that we've used. Now, Tom is the master of this stuff and also the master of teaching this stuff. And as you guys know, I believe very much in giving credit where it's due. So we're crediting Troy for all of the stuff that came before. We're crediting Tom very much for this. But what it boils down to is we are very used as guitar players to changing strings on strong beats. And what that normally means is we're used to changing strings on strong beats and changing fingers on strong beats. What might that look like? Well, we're going to flip to some legato technique now to show you what's going on there, right? So we're used to playing stuff that goes like this. You get the gist? When it's time to change, it's time for a strong beat. Now that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but it can trip us up if we're not able to change strings at pretty much an arbitrary point in the beat or an arbitrary point in the bar. And I'm going to challenge your ability to do this now. We've done this as a previous example, right? But we're going to see what's going on here. So let's start by playing a 3-note per string scale. And we're going to start adding and subtracting notes on this. So what we get is, by the way, I just got to highlight this comment. I've just realized what's going on here. My friend Craig saying, "You're playing My Lovely Horse." Just play the effing note. I'm not going to swear. I'm not going to do the accent either. But yeah, fabulous. Love Father Ted. I'm showing my age here, right? But I love me some Ted. Anyway, so 3 notes per string. We're going to play 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7 on the lowest 2 strings. 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7 on the middle strings. And we're only going to go as far as that. We don't need to go any further. Let's play it as 8th notes, and we're going to play it like this. Let's go. Notice the doubled note at the top and bottom. You can pick this, you can legato this, whatever you fancy. Whatever's working for you. Okay, let's interrupt this in the simplest way possible. And the simplest way possible is to take out the doubled note. So we don't double this note, we don't double this note. Why is it harder? It shouldn't be. It's mechanically the same thing. It's our ability to perceive the time that is difficult. And this is where time feel gets its thing from. And why it's even a thing. I have a friend who's like, time feel? You mean time? You mean time? Stop putting fancy words on things. I'm like, nah, man, it's different. It is different. And it's a specific thing. I am using the neck pickup, Mal Riley. I am indeed, but I'll use whichever pickup you want. There's the bridge pickup. I just like the way the neck pickup sounds. It doesn't break the amp up as much. It's kind of a smooth noise. Beautiful sounding neck pickup. Anyway, so that should be feeling pretty okay, right? Now, we're going to change this up, and we're going to change this up by removing a note. And the note we're going to remove in question to begin with is we're going to remove the second finger. We're going to remove the second finger on one of our strings, and it'll be the A string. So instead of playing this, we're now going to get this. Exactly the same thing, but we're removing the middle finger on the A string. Let's see what this gives us and why it's suddenly more challenging. Let's see. Let's go. Anybody finding themselves holding their breath or getting tight? Try not to. Try and stay loose. Ooh, I messed it up. Once again, 3, 4. Too busy talking, too busy reading the comments. Try and stay loose if you can, or as loose as it's possible for you to do. What gives with this? Why is that difficult? Well, we're going to make it more difficult in a second. One of the reasons this is difficult is we are disrupting the rhythm. We're disrupting the rhythm of our string changes. The string changes are no longer ba 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 ba. Now it's ba 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 ba. You get the gist, right? We're disrupting the rhythm. We're going to change this up once again by disrupting it in a different way by changing the finger that we use to change strings, because we're very used to using the leading finger, whatever the first finger is in our pattern, whether it's pinky finger if we're descending or index finger if we're ascending. We're going to change that up, and the way we're going to get that is by doing this. We're going to change that second finger omission to a first finger omission on our A string. We're going to play 1, 2, 3, 3 notes. It'll be frets 3, 5, 7. And then we'll play 5, 7 only. Let's try that along with some drums, see how it treats us. This again is going to be challenging because we're disrupting not just the rhythm, but also which finger is doing the string changing. Got a bit wild there. Let's try that again. This time what we'll do is we'll play at 16th notes. Now, for those of you who can't play this stuff, and those of you who are feeling this is okay, I want to know if you get the thing that we all get where you go, yes, I can play that, but it requires a bit more thought. I'm going to pay a bit more attention to that than I would have to if I was just blazing up and down that scale in the way that I've practiced it 1,000 times. And if that is the case, it could well be that your left hand has some work to do when it comes to string crossing too. So not only do we have right hand considerations, but we also have left hand considerations, making sure that we're practicing crosses that don't just happen on strong fingers, don't just happen on strong beats. We get a right hand picking thing on the go. You'll be a master of the single most difficult aspect of playing the guitar in no time at all. Mark Randall saying I have to think about it much more. Yeah, it's normal, right? It's normal. If something is disrupting the pattern, if it's disrupting your flow, you've got to think about it a little bit. But that can be really useful, especially in practice. Because in practice, we talk about chasing those oh shit moments where you go, oh, I've got to think about this. And that's a good way to generate one of those. So that's a potential option for you. Guys, we're going to take some questions, right? If you have questions, I want to hear from you, but we've also got some cool comments. My friend Jamie Slays says, I love you. I love you too. That's a lovely guitar you're holding there. Purple. Beautiful colour for an instrument. I've got some purple lights. You wouldn't see purple guitar behind me. It would vanish. It would become camouflaged. City of Godslayer, our shred correspondent, saying, it's okay for me, but surely I can work on it more. Absolutely, right? The more you work on this, the freer you will be as a player. It just becomes instinctive after a while, and that's the idea. Helmet Strap says, I keep moving hand position to lead with the dominant finger. Well, this is telling, right? And this is not telling in the sense of, oh no, you're a bad person and you haven't been practicing. Not at all. This is something we all do. It's a habit we all have as guitar players, because the body is searching for a very efficient way to play things. Ultimately, however, we can't always play things in the most efficient position possible, because the guitar is a strange bit of design and there are mechanical compromises to be had. However, what we get in return is the ability to do two very cool things. The two very cool things are to do this. Which is to take a JCM 800 and set everything to the Joe Perry settings, which is everything on 7, and bang on it and have it go rank. And we also get to do this, which is equally cool. Which is play notes that sound like a wailing singer, but also sound like a very cool, like, ripping cello or violin or something like that. I don't know. So it's a trade-off worth making, I think, in that case. Here is a great one from Marcin saying, it's like sweeping in the middle like sweeping in the middle of playing 3-1-3 patterns, School of Rick Graham, for sure, right? But going back to that idea that we were talking about before, that is kind of where this rest stroke thing comes in, because those patterns are predicated on rest strokes. We play down, up, down, and then rest, 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 and then we switch postures to come back. That's where a lot of that comes from. So yes, you're absolutely correct. It is like that. And it requires a bit more thought to do that stuff. But that is all predicated on the same angles and the same rest stroke things that we're talking about here. I did not see this post on the Discord, by the way. If you guys haven't joined the Discord, by the way, we have a Discord server. It is community run. Links will be hopefully shared below. If not, you can go and check out a previous stream. We've shared as many links as we can. YouTube does not like us sharing links in the comments for reasons. Don't know what those reasons are, but it does not like us sharing reasons. For links for reasons. Who knows? Who knows? By the way, on the subject of sharing, right, I want to highlight something that's going to be going on quite soon. So a friend, Nick Harrison, I'm going to come back to you, Sacred Godslayer, because I'm going to address this. But our friend Nick Harrison, who's not here this week, but when he is here this week, he wants to give you some free stuff, right? He wants to give you some free books. So hopefully we'll see Nick next week, and then we'll figure that out, right? So it's going to happen. You get lots of great, cool, free content. It's not a Lick Library thing, but Nick is a Lick Library contributor. He's done a course for us, and he's a friend, and he's done a lot of stuff for me too. So happy to shout this business out. If you haven't done so already, go check out the Creative Guitar Performance Workshop. It's great. So the question here is, the right hand has a habit of not aligning correctly on the first string, so I tend to extend the wrist instead of going all the way. I think I know what you're talking about here. So is it this sort of thing where the maybe the pick starts here, and by the time you get down to this point, the when you're on the first string, the wrist is pretty much at the terminal end of its range of motion. So we start here, and then we've worked our way all the way along here. If that's something that's happening, where maybe this feels good, and then we're in this very awkward transitional point here, what I'm going to suggest is just to get in the habit of sliding the picking apparatus up and down on the guitar. So you can start here, and wherever it's appropriate, just take this whole thing and move it around. Now you can do this in jumps. So if you're playing, say for example, a line up here, you can play that whole passage with the like picking apparatus in one spot, and then by the time you get to the lower strings, you can just shift the whole thing slightly. So you can see me doing that as I move from these high lines all the way down to these lower pitches. I'm moving the whole apparatus, so it's not just staying fixed in one anchor point and then rotating around that, because then we end up with this weird thing where this part of the picking is awkward and this part of the picking is awkward, and that can also lead to some people struggling with these escape angles, because it's almost impossible, if you're all the way up here, it's almost impossible to generate an upstroke escape. And it's almost impossible to generate a downstroke escape in this position. You can't turn the arm far enough. It's very challenging. So what I would suggest is get used to keeping this somewhere in a mid-range in terms of the range of motion, and move the hand around as you need to. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense, or at least a bit of sense. That's the way that I would address that. Hopefully that has answered the question, folks. I beg your pardon, I should have reached for my cough button. We're running out of time, so I'm going to play a little bit further. Oh, here's an interesting one, right, from our friend 00 Govern 00, hopefully named after our Lord and Saviour Guthrie. Says, yeah, Unada, I don't know how to pronounce that name, I'm really sorry, Alunda's picking hand in the Abassi competition he won. All sorts of modulation. I see what you mean, right? That's definitely worth looking at in that case then. So maybe that's a player that we should go and examine. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'll Google that as soon as we are done, right? Right, great shout. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Folks, I'm going to bid you adieu, right? I'm going to play some more. I'll go to the close-up cameras and I'll see if I can get some more of this going on. And then, yeah, all we go. Hopefully, you guys got something out of that. We'll be talking more about picking for a few streams, but then we'll be leading it somewhere. We're essentially using these streams to give you the tools to play some cool stuff that we'll be looking at later in the month. So stick around. If you're not subscribed already, consider dropping us a subscribe. It really does help, like more than you can possibly imagine. It helps out loads. It helps us reach as many guitar players as we possibly can. Helps us bring new people into our little community, which we love. And of course, it allows us to do things like we've done today, where we can take a cursory discussion at the back end of last stream and turn it into a whole new stream. We've got some very cool community features coming your way very soon, by the way, for Lick Library members. If you're not a Lick Library member, consider taking out a membership. My new course is now available, all about arpeggios, along with so many other great courses. We're dropping new classic albums soon, I can't tell you what. Just a whole bunch of courses. It's going to be killer. And of course, we have the biggest and growing library of lessons you'll possibly find anywhere on the internet ever. And don't forget, go to guitarinteractivemagazine.com as well for news, reviews, interviews, all that good lifestyle guitar stuff. I think we'll play an F sharp because F sharp is fun. We've done lots of E today. Let's play out on this one. My name's Nick Jennison. I will see you guys next week.